that's the best they could possibly play. I think maybe the Cincinnati game too.
Yeah,
but the rest
two.
of the games, you feel like, well, yeah, they won, but boy, they could have done better. Like, they could have won. They made this a lot harder than it needed to be, and which is good in a way. You feel like they haven't peaked yet. They still have a lot to improve and a lot of room for improvement. So maybe we'll start to see that. Maybe we'll start to see that maturity start to kick in. And that's really what it is maturity. I think we're looking for a team that doesn't go up and down from week to week, that can sort of find a plateau and find a rhythm and be able to just show up and win some games because of their consistency and their ability to sort of play level-headed and win games just because they're the better team. So that's what I'm looking to see, and that's what I'm hoping to see. If not this week, then here sometime in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. You're right, though. I hear you on the consistency and coming out there following up one effort with another. You put the two on the head. I would say the two, as far as Pittsburgh and Cincinnati as well, were the two kind of complete start-to-finish type games, where they went out there and just really – and they're both division games. And maybe – we mentioned it. They get up and they get down. They get up for the guys that they get up for, and then they go play down to the guys that they get down for. And I don't know why. I don't know that you could say why, because the coaching staff seems to get them ready every week for the next deal. And I do think that is the biggest thing. When you want to chalk this whole season up, you can go to different positions, different talent, and different players, but at the end of the day, I think it's that team, that coaching staff's ability to keep the team just 1 week at a time. Whether they're just repeating the coach's mantra or not, but you continually hear things like, hey, we're just trying to be 1-0 this week. That's all we're trying to do. We don't care about next week, last week, whatever. It's shown in Hoyer being able to bounce back and just forget about it. And everybody, whether it's a fumble, whether it's a by Crow, whether it's a bad game by Hoyer, whatever it is, to go, hey, it's in the back burner. It's in the rearview mirror. Let's move ahead. That's part of how I think they've done it, is because they just forget last week, forget next week, and they just focus on this week.
Yeah. And that's the fact that they are buying into it, you can see them incrementally sort of buying into it, and that they mention it and repeat it. But yeah, they need to do it. I mean, they need to show it, and that's the tough part. I mean, anybody can say, yeah, we're taking them one at a time. Where anyone can do rip off the sound bites that everyone's used to hearing in locker rooms, but it's something else to go out on the field and do it. And I think it's very telling that you mentioned Pittsburgh and Cincinnati being the two best performances this team has had this year, that their two worst performances were the game after both of those games. I think there's a connection there, and there's a lack of maturity there, and we've talked about it, and Pettin has mentioned it himself. We need to see how much we've matured. This is a maturity week. We're going to see how we respond after a big win, and the Browns have struggled all year after these big emotional comeback. Whatever the victory may be, they have struggled. So here we are again. They're coming off of a great road win, an exciting, thrilling win that again was harder than it needed to be. But this is a trap, and this is something that the Browns need to prevent from falling into if they want to stay in this playoff hunt. They need to show the maturity to not only win a big game, but then to follow up a big game with another big game. That's how you cross that bridge.
I know you got a tight window. I can't keep you long here. I want to wrap it up where we're talking about Coach Pettin. Brian Hoyer, I thought that what he said was not only very honest and more open, I think, than some people would speak about their head coach, which speaks to the respect level mutually that those guys have. But he was asked what surprised him the most about Coach Pettin this season. He said, for a guy who I know when he first got here, a lot of people questioned him being here. His ability to handle being a head coach in the first year, to rally our guys around him, to get everybody to buy into his philosophy. A lot of coaches are not able to do that in their first year. Maybe we were scared of him because of his look, but whatever it was, we bought in from day one. We had a group who was desperate to win and a coach who believed every word he told us. And we said, we're all in, and we took it from there. He said, it's a team that just is very believing and very confident in their head coach. And I think that speaks a lot. I thought it was interesting to say what everybody knows, which is everybody questioned him being hired when he got here. Everybody said, sure, well, with the high school rookie head coach and all of that, many people would pussyfoot around that. He said, hey, man, none of us knew what we had. And somehow this guy got a bunch of people to believe in a guy that nobody needed to believe in. And
yeah,
I think
sort
that
of
sums
the
a
Lou
lot of it
Brown.
up.
He's sort of a Lou Brown. I mean, if you want to
Yeah.
tie this into a Major League analogy, which is what we do on this show,
I love
he really
that
has that
British
Lou Brown. Like
football.
nobody's heard of him, but he might just have. He even looks a little like Lou Brown. He might just have that karma, whatever you want to call it, that's able to bring together, particularly in this case, a group of overachievers, essentially a group of guys that really very little was expected from. But we talked about, just as we talked about the Browns having to show that maturity to improve and to be consistent from one year to the next, it's really going to be interesting with Pettine, not necessarily from week to week this season, but to see how he responds next year, to see how his players respond to him next year. I think he's caught lightning in a bottle here this year, and he's got a mojo with this particular group of guys, and they've really taken to him, and what he's doing is working. The question is he going to be able to work this a second year? And that's how you succeed as a head coach in the NFL. Teams do it week to week. Coaches do it from year to year. So it's going to be a big question. Can he maintain this? Can he still capture this imagination, capture the spirit, and bring out what he's bringing out in this year's team? Can he do it again next year? Or is this a one-year wonder type of situation?
What he reminds me of, and this is just the intangibles, there goes that word again for you Hoyer haters, but with the intangibles, what he reminds me of is a situation like Bruce Arians. Now, Arians is a better offensive coach and all of that, but throughout his career, even as a coordinator, Arians has been known as a guy who gets more out of his players than perhaps the individual parts, and they play very hard for him, and he's just a coach that gets people to buy into his system and play for him. That, at least this year, is what we saw with Pettine. But like you said, we've seen coaches like that where that wears on guys and that grinds on guys in year 2 and 3, especially if the upward trend goes backwards a little bit. Then you start to see some... It's easy to believe when you've been successful. When you take a step back, do you still believe? Or do you start to go, oh, I knew this guy didn't know what he was doing, just like Brian Hoyer. He has a couple of good games and people are ready to go, yeah, give him $150 million. Then he throws 3 interceptions and they want him benched at halftime. So there you go.
And even tying into what you were just saying before I came on, Jim Harbaugh. I mean, gosh, look how his head star has fallen. A couple of years ago, he was the prince of the NFL, certainly of that franchise. And look now, it's like he's 1 foot out the door. Not only because Michigan's going to come calling, but even without that, he probably would be looking for a job come January. So it can happen fast, and it happens to talented coaches, and it's all about, again, consistency. It's not necessarily about winning the Super Bowl every year. It's about maintaining that consistency and being a winner and avoiding the bad year, avoiding the 5-11 or the 6-10, and being able to at least come close to meeting those expectations. So it's a tough job. It is a thankless job for anybody, and that's why you don't see many guys. I mean, really, if you think about it, how many guys, head coaches, have been with their teams longer than 2, 3, maybe 4 years tops? I mean, it's pretty amazing, the ones who have lasted that long. But when you look at them, you can see why. When you look at their track record, here's why. Because it's consistency. It's all about consistency.
Exactly right. We want to turn things over so quick in Cleveland. I think San Francisco is just a trip because that's a team. Some people had that. Now, they knew they'd take a step back this year, but I mean, that's a year in and out Super Bowl contender. And they're not even under 500. And the die is cast that guy is probably out as the coach there, which of course there's behind the scenes dynamics, but that's just nuts. We're sitting here like, man, smell the roses, man. 7-4. All right. These guys are
which is why next year is going to be so much more difficult for the Browns because, as we've said before, it is so much harder to maintain than it is to get there. It's all fun and games when you're 7-4, when you're off of a 4-12 season that you were expecting to be a 3-13 season. This is great. So even if they wind up 8-8, we're still going to be thrilled with this season. But guess what? That now means that next year when you start 1-3, now the drums are beating and now there's problems. And next year, even if you are 7-4 at this point, you're probably not as excited as you are now. So it's just a very, very difficult. It's very difficult because the expectations are just tremendous. They just really are, and that's what essentially dooms so many coaches. It's not that I would guess that at least 3/4 of coaches that get fired in the NFL and maybe across other sports don't deserve to get fired. Really, they're getting fired because they can't meet the unrealistic expectations that are set forth on them. And maybe that's the difference. The guys who do hang around longer have owners that say, you know what, inevitably they'll reach a point where it's like, okay, I could fire you. This is a point where the fans I could fire you and be justified, but they stick with them and hang with them. And I mean, Bill Cowher is a great example. There were a couple of years in the late 90s and even early 2000s where he could have been fired, and everyone would have agreed with that and gone along with it, but they didn't. They stuck with him and wound up winning 2 Super Bowls and building sort of a dynasty that continues to this day. So there's something to be said for staying the course and sort of spitting in the face of unrealistic expectations. Not to say that the Browns are going to do that because they don't have a history of doing that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, you're playing a losing game essentially. It is so difficult to meet those expectations on a year-to-year basis. So yeah, you got to start now. I mean, really, Pettine's first year. This is the best year for a first-year coach since Bud Carson. May wind up being better than that year, depending on how this thing pans out. So yeah, with that, that's great. With that comes incredibly high expectations for next year.
That's it, higher expectations, and how do they handle them? And it'll be interesting to see, but it's good to be on that side of the question.
Yes, I would rather be here than where we were a year ago.
Yes, this is the fun part of it, man. Mike Holmgren, maybe eventually I'll be calling you for playoff tickets after all, man. All right, Jonathan Knight, my man, have a good one. Hey, the Browns sent out playoff ticket paperwork this week because they had to, by the way, not knocking the team. The NFL had them send it out. I think they even specified that the NFL had us put this out because they didn't want to seem too presumptive. But I'm like, man, when's the last time you got playoff ticket stuff in the mail for you season ticket holders out there? You know?
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Usually by this time,
usually by this time they're bribing you. They're sending you, 18 free tickets and a T-shirt going, please renew with us.
Please renew, please. We'll wash your car. We will shovel your driveway. Please renew. Yeah.
Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire. You have a good rest of your trip and come on back. Yeah, I know it was 2007. That was still a long time ago. 2007, I didn't even have 2 kids. I only had 1.
Same thing. Yeah. I mean, this is a very different life. If you think back, 2007 doesn't seem like that long ago, but when you think about it in terms of, how old your kids were, how many kids you had, where you were living, things change a lot in 7 years. So it's been a long time.
How many of you still have the car, the wife, the girlfriend, or the kids that you had in 2007? Let me know how that list checks out a few years later. JK, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the Browns and the Bills. We'll catch up next week, and we'll see if the dream is still alive. We'll see what's happening.
Yes, we will. Looking forward to it, buddy. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too. Happy Thanksgiving. My man, Jonathan Knight, the sports writer extraordinaire. Let's take a break. Let's see if, I don't even know if I can find Ryan Ruiz, if he's still out there. Man, this show has gone off the tracks. I'm going to find out when we come back. We may be bringing you some Dawg Bones, or I just may be barking to myself. Either way, don't go anywhere. As a matter of fact, not just don't go anywhere. When we come back, I'm going to give you a chance to win Glory Days in Tribe Town. Terry Pluto and Tom Hamilton. Story of the Indians and Jacobs Field from 94 to 97 coming your way in the next segment. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with plenty more sports fix still to come, Daddy.
I'll tell you what you're gonna do, brother. You're gonna listen to the Sports Fix, cause Yoda said so.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew